A demon dog crouched on the roof. With a smile on its face, it lunged at the ground meat shop owner, spewing stomach acid from its mouth. This acid corroded half of the man's face. He walked into the inner room, grabbed his wife's feet, and dragged her to the large pot for cooking dog meat. Vietnam's highest-grossing horror film is now online, bringing you a terrifying experience. One late night, the ground meat shop owner Guo was pulling a dead dog home, but halfway there, his motorcycle suddenly stalled, and Guo got down to fix it. He noticed a puddle nearby, and went to wash off the gasoline from his hands. The dead dog behind him suddenly raised its body, its eyes glowing red. When Guo turned back, the vision disappeared again. He continued to wash his hands attentively, but a force dragged him into the puddle. The dog on the back seat smiled. Guo's son Anan received news of his father's death. He took his girlfriend Xiaomei back to his hometown, to help with the funeral arrangements. His mother asked Anan to close his father's eyes. Blood was flowing from Guo's 7 orifices, and there were bite marks on his neck. Anan suppressed his unease, and joined his mother for a meal in the house. Their family has been in the dog meat slaughtering business for generations, so of course what's served on the table is dog meat. Xiaomei didn't want to touch her chopsticks, but Anan's family was very hospitable. The aunt's expression changed instantly, but fortunately Anan quickly stepped in to explain to Xiaomei, because he also didn't eat dog meat, which was why he left his hometown to work in a distant city. In the evening, Anan stayed behind to keep vigil for his father. He heard the sound of the coffin lid moving and, bending down, he found 2 sets of feet. Anan circled around to the back of the coffin to investigate, and encountered his deceased father, which frightened him so much that he collapsed to the ground. When Anan managed to get back up, he discovered that his mother, aunt, and several other relatives were all hanging from the rafters. Then, the deceased grandfather appeared once again. The next moment, Anan woke up from his dream. It turned out that he had fallen asleep while keeping vigil. The next morning, the whole family buried Guo. At noon, the aunt cooked dog meat again. The uncle's family proposed to Anan's mother that they take over the operation of the ground meat shop instead of his brother. The aunt also agreed with their approach, because someone in the village was trying to open a meat shop to take away their business. Just then, Xiaomei nudged Anan, indicating for him to announce to his family that they were planning to get married. The aunt was very angry upon hearing this. "Your father just passed away. Wait to bring up marriage later. The neighbors will surely have something unpleasant to say." Anan explained that he had consulted a master who advised that it would be best to have the wedding 49 days later. Moreover, Xiaomei was already pregnant, so they needed to have the wedding before her pregnancy became obvious. The uncle on the side suggested that Xiaomei should have an abortion. The uncle's family and the aunt teamed up. Now that Guo is dead, they will not take Anan mother and son seriously. The 3 of them quickly left. Anan seemed ineffectual, unable to stand up for his pregnant fiancée. Even Anan's mother had to seek the approval of the entire family to allow Xiaomei to marry into the family. The mother and son decided to wait for 49 days after Guo's death before making a decision. Xiaomei became increasingly worried about her situation. If she couldn't marry smoothly, how would she explain it to her parents? Anan comforted Xiaomei, telling her not to worry. "Whatever happens, I will definitely marry you." Just then, Xiaomei noticed a white dog in the yard that wasn't locked in a cage. Anan explained that they were not raising Little White to slaughter and sell its meat, but to guard the house and yard. Regarding Little White's background, there is an interesting story. Several years ago, a pregnant mother dog unexpectedly came to the meat shop to settle down and gave birth to a litter of puppies. However, as time passed, its siblings and mother passed away one after another, leaving only Little White. That's why Anan's family has been taking care of it. At this moment, Anan's mother came over with a plate of rotten fruits, complaining that the items bought by the aunt couldn't be preserved, and she had to go buy fruits to place on the ancestral altar. Xiaomei hinted to Anan to accompany his mother, as the mother and son rarely spent time together. Xiaomei washed the dishes and prepared to go back to the room to rest. When she heard a chewing sound, she turned her head and saw a dog sitting at the dining table eating, while a little boy beside it was crouched by the food bowl like a dog. Xiaomei covered her mouth and stepped back, hitting a chair beside her. Several eerie creatures turned their heads together, startling her into a loud scream. Fortunately, Anan and his mother arrived in time, and the eerie scene by the dining table disappeared. Anan's mother thought Xiaomei was just tired from pregnancy, and told her to rest early. Anan supported his girlfriend back to the room. Anan's mother brought fruit to her husband as an offering. She turned on the radio playing Buddhist scriptures, praying for Guoqiang. The entire ancestral altar shook incessantly, and strange sounds came from the radio. Anan's mother quickly turned off the switch, but the machine continued to make noise. She threw the radio on the ground and smashed it. Just then, strange noises came from above, as if something was moving roof tiles. Anan's mother looked up, and suddenly met a pair of glowing red eyes. Then, accompanied by a dog's bark, Anan's mother was dragged to the ground. Anan quickly came to rescue his mother, and found that her foot was twisted. Bizarre incidents continued as, while Aunt was cooking, she found fresh food suddenly infested with maggots. On that day, Anan and Xiaomei went to the market for a stroll. They planned to buy ingredients to cook for the injured mother. Aunt's group of people invited a master to perform rituals at home to drive away evil spirits. The master put a bundle of incense into his mouth and chewed it, then spit the crumbs into the bowl. He said, "There are still some unresolved issues between the deceased and the surviving relatives. If these issues are not resolved, more deaths will occur in Anan's family." Aunt felt uneasy upon hearing this, because she had stolen money from Guoqiang for gambling, and had quarreled with him. His uncle also felt a little guilty. Initially, he had married his current wife against objections, which had displeased his elder brother, and his uncle bragged about inheriting the butcher shop. It was also passed on to Guoqiang by others. The three of them quickly asked the master for a solution. The master said they could perform a ritual to drive away the deceased. However, after the ritual, the soul of the deceased would not be able to return home, becoming a complete lonely ghost. Aunt and the others did not care about the fate of the deceased, and immediately had the master perform the ritual. On the other side, Anan and Xiaomei passed by a dog meat shop, where the customers were feasting heartily, which made Xiaomei feel nauseous. Suddenly, a man rushed in and shouted, "You can't eat, or else you'll be bitten by it." Neighbor Aunt Hua quickly came to take away her crazed brother. Seeing Anan standing nearby, she hesitated but still warned him.
Coi chừng con chó trắng mũi đỏ. Nuôi nó không nên đâu.
On the way back, Xiaomei asked who Aunt Hua was. Anan explained that before his father's meat shop became successful, Aunt Hua's family's dog meat shop was the largest. However, Aunt Hua's father suddenly went insane, attacking family members with a knife. Later, he died from a lightning strike, leading to the closure of the meat shop. Xiaomei felt worried after hearing this. The suspicious deaths of both meat shop owners made her wonder if there was any connection between them. That night, amidst lightning and thunder, heavy rain began to fall. Anan remembered Aunt Hua's words, and decided to search online for information about a red-nosed white dog. There are indeed some rumors. Online it is said that the red-nosed white dog is a calamity. A demon will reincarnate in the fetus of a dog's mother, causing its parents and siblings to die slowly. When the red-kissed white dog grows up, like walking silently on the roof late at night, it will also cause disharmony between the owner and his family. Let them quarrel and hurt each other. Moreover, the demon only behaves obediently inside the dog during the day. When night falls, it will awaken. The awakened demon dog will stand upright on its hind legs, wearing a rounded hat to shield the moonlight. Since they typically live in places with the highest yin energy, the locations they inhabit often experience lightning strikes. Just as the two were researching, Aunt suddenly felt like there was something in the room. She checked everywhere, but found nothing unusual. Unexpectedly, a red-eyed creature was approaching, frightening Aunt, who screamed uncontrollably. Anan and Xiaomei hurried over to investigate. They found that the dog darted past. Anan bravely pursued it. In the pitch-black rainy night, with countless pairs of red eyes gleaming, those eyeballs were attached to the tree trunks. A white dog walking on its hind legs, and wearing a hat, suddenly hid in the shadows. Then a thunderclap sounded, and those eyeballs flew away like birds. Anan realized the situation was dire. He hoped his uncle would postpone the opening, to avoid more misfortunes. However, his uncle and aunt only cared about making money, and insisted on reopening the next day. Even Aunt, who had just been scared by the dog, agreed to open. The next day, the three of them were busy slaughtering the dog to sell the meat. Aunt was about to cut a leg for a customer. As soon as her knife fell, Anan's mother inside the house screamed in pain. It was as if the knife had landed on her leg. Anan quickly stopped Aunt, and directly handed the dog's leg to the customer, telling them not to cut anymore. Business was very good on the first day. In the evening, Aunt was washing up in the courtyard, when that feeling of being watched struck again. She tried to reach for the knife on the cutting board, but before she could, hands suddenly grabbed Aunt, causing her to fall forward. She grasped the sharp carbon groove, cut a cut on her palm. Before Aunt could get up, someone pulled her again, and her neck was slashed open. The siblings in Ainan's family tragically died within 2 days, and the villagers gathered to discuss, saying that Guoqian's vengeful spirit killed Ant. Ainan's home was now filled with ominous signs, and they could no longer buy dog meat from there. In the late night, Ainan was awakened by a noise, and he followed the sound to investigate. He found Xiaobai drinking water in front of the food bowl. Suddenly it stopped moving, raised its head, and then pounced on Ainan. Ainan stretched out his arms and swung, but there was no dog leaping at him. Just when Ainan thought it was all an illusion, he discovered bite marks on his arm. The next day, Ainan decided to visit Aunt Hua, hoping to learn more about the demon dog. Unexpectedly, Aunt Hua's door was open, and it seemed like nobody was inside. Ainan was inspecting the house, when a hand reached out from under the bed, and grabbed his ankle. It turned out to be Aunt Hua's crazy brother, Xiaolai. Ainan dragged him out from under the bed. He noticed that Xiaolai also had bite marks on his neck. Aunt Hua came over to comfort her brother, and he quieted down inside the dog cage. The other two sat down in the living room to talk in detail, and Aunt Hua recounted the events of that night many years ago. Her father went mad and slaughtered the family, making sounds like a wild dog. Aunt Hua hid under the table in silence, but was pulled out by her father. Thanks to her brother's help, Aunt Hua escaped unharmed. The siblings shook off their father, and ran into the yard. Unexpectedly, the other party still chased out. Xiaolai saw the right moment and threw down his father, but his father quickly broke free, and grabbed him with a machete in his hand. Fortunately, that night, with lightning and thunder roaring, the raised knife attracted a lightning strike that killed their father, finally putting an end to the tragedy in Aunt Hua's family. This is the karmic retribution. The sins of the dog meat shop were too heavy, leading to a backlash. While Ainan was investigating, Uncle's family invited a master to perform a ritual. This time, they needed to dig up Guoqian's grave, remove his eyes and replace them with yin-yang coins. Then a blood relative had to cut off Guoqian's tongue, driving a nail into the dead man's head. After this ritual, the deceased would be unable to find their way home. Uncle knew that Ainan would not agree, so he took advantage of Xiaomei's inattention, and drugged her food. If Xiaomei had health issues, Ainan would definitely not be able to leave. At that time, the master would be able to focus on the ritual, and trap Guoqian's soul in the tomb. While Uncle's family was busy digging the grave, Ainan and Xiaomei went to see a doctor, and learned that she had accidentally taken abortion pills. Fortunately, the dosage was insufficient, and both the adult and the child were unharmed. Ainan was very angry. He went home and questioned Aunt about whether they had drugged Xiaomei's porridge. Ainan's mother also came and blamed Aunt. The woman revealed a secret. It turned out that before Aunt came over to marry, she was pregnant. As a woman with no support, she was forced by Ainan's mother to have an abortion, which was done improperly, and resulted in Aunt being infertile for life. Ainan's mother slapped Aunt and angrily rebuked her. "How dare you still say that? Do you think I don't know? That child was actually Guoqian's?"
Đẻ con với ổng, mày có chữa 10 lần thì tao cũng không bao giờ cho những đứa nghiệt xúc được chào đời.
On the other side, Guoqian's eyeballs had already been gouged out. The master asked about the specific time of death, and the people helping to dig the grave all remembered it was around 5 o'clock, but Uncle insisted it was 3:30. Ainan happened to hear his words. He interrogated Uncle about what was really going on, and the truth of the matter finally became clear. The night of the incident, Guoqian was actually meeting with his younger brother's wife. They were seen by Uncle Ainan. Guoqian felt no guilt at all. He knew his younger brother relied on the dog meat stall to make a living. He didn't dare to resist. He can only hand over his wife, and Uncle Ainan was very angry all along. So when he passed by the street where Guoqian drowned, he didn't lend a helping hand. Instead, he watched his elder brother drown in the water pit, and thus he knew the exact time of Guoqian's death. Ainan wants to avenge his father. He fought with his uncle. Seeing the situation turning bad, the master turned and ran. The uncle picked up a brick, and knocked Ainan unconscious. He bowed his head to check the pain. He found large areas of ulceration on his shin. The uncle turned and left the scene. He had just returned to the dog meat stall. He saw the white dog crouching on the roof. The demon dog pounced on the uncle, vomited all over his face with stomach acid. The uncle with half of his face rotten. He approached his wife. He grabbed the woman's feet, dragged the other person to the big iron pot, where the dog meat is cooked. Boiling water was right in front of them. When Ainan returned home, he saw that half of his aunt's face had been scalded. On the other side, the uncle was holding a flamethrower, intending to burn Ainan's mother. Xiaomei was trying to stop him. Ainan rushed forward to help. He grabbed the flamethrower, and pushed the uncle away. He tried to pull his mother and Xiaomei away. Uncle grabbed Ainan, and pushed him under the knife. In a critical moment, Xiao Mei came to help. Anan bravely fought with his uncle to protect his family. After a hard struggle, he managed to knock him down. His uncle stood up again. His twisted neck turned back to its original position, clearly no longer human. Anan asked Xiao Mei and his mother to leave first. He stayed behind to hold back his uncle. He picked up a plate and smashed it against the back of his uncle's head. Then he took the opportunity to escape through the back door. His uncle also came out chasing with a weapon. Just then, thunder started to rumble. Anan remembered the story Aunt Hua had told him. He realized that to end everything, he needed the lightning to strike and kill his uncle. However, achieving this was no easy task. Anan tried to figure out a plan while dealing with his uncle. He noticed the protruding stump on the tree trunk. He deliberately lured his uncle over. Anan sidestepped to avoid. His uncle was impaled by the stump. Anan rushed over and hugged him. The next moment, a bolt of lightning finally killed his uncle. Later, Anan closed the dog meat stall and went back to the city with his mother to live. The movie ends here. Adapted from the Vietnamese folk tale The Dog Wearing a Hat, featuring the first horror film performance by the Vietnamese DJ Queen. Some scenes are still quite innovative. However, the special effects are quite outdated, seriously affecting the quality of the film. The film portrays many aspects of Vietnamese customs and traditions. If you like my channel, please consider subscribing.